Abandoned K9. German Shepherd jumped on her rescuer as if to say, "Please don't leave my puppies." She was nothing but skin and bones when he found her. Lying on the side of the road, eyes sunken, paws trembling, ribs poking through a coat once proud and golden. People had passed her by. Some threw scraps, others turned their heads, but she never barked. She didn't even move until he got close, and then, without warning, she leapt. Not in fear, not to attack, but into his chest, as if to beg, "Don't leave, please. Don't leave my babies behind." Confused, the man looked around. The dog pressed her body against him, then turned her head toward the alley behind her, whimpering. Her eyes said everything. Something was there, something she refused to leave. When he followed her gaze, he heard it. Tiny cries. Puppies. Abandoned. Hidden. Waiting for a mother who had almost died trying to protect them. What this man did next will restore your faith in love, in loyalty, and in the unbreakable bond between a canine and her family. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more heartwarming and emotional stories like this to you, because this isn't just a rescue story. It's a story about sacrifice, motherhood, and a dog who gave everything she had, not for herself, but for her puppies. Jake Turner had seen a lot during his years in animal rescue. He'd pulled dogs from floodwaters, climbed down ravines to save trapped strays, and once even broke a window to free a husky locked inside a sweltering car. But he had never, not once, seen anything like the German Shepherd lying near the dumpster behind the old gas station. It was a gray afternoon, the kind that hung low and heavy when Jake stopped at a convenience store on the edge of town. He'd just come from checking out an adoption site when something caught his eye. A movement, barely there just beyond the back fence, a flicker of gold and black fur, a paw twitching. He parked, climbed the gate, and slowly approached. That's when he saw her. The German Shepherd lay curled against the concrete wall, her breathing shallow. Her ribs stuck out sharply. Her coat was matted and filthy, and one of her back legs trembled as if trying and failing to move. She didn't lift her head, just watched him, silently, with wide amber eyes. Jake crouched low. "Hey there, girl." No growl, no bark, just a soft, defeated whimper. He reached out, slowly, letting her smell his hand. But before he could touch her, she gathered the last bit of strength she had and jumped forward, collapsing into his chest. Jake caught her, stunned. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't fear. It was desperation. She clung to him, weak paws trembling against his arms, her eyes locking with his in a way that made his throat tighten. And then she turned her head, sharply, toward the alley behind her. A broken wooden crate, a pile of blankets, trash. And from there, Jake heard it. The faintest sound, a high-pitched, rhythmic whimper. Puppies. Jake's pulse raced. Oh my God. He gently laid the shepherd down and hurried toward the crate. The moment he got close, he froze. Inside, barely visible, under a torn sheet and an old jacket, were 3 tiny German Shepherd puppies, no older than 2 weeks. One of them was curled up against the other, the smallest one twitching weakly as if searching for warmth. Their eyes weren't even open. They were so quiet, too quiet. Jake's heart sank. He rushed back to the mother, who was now trying and failing to stand. "You brought them here," he whispered. "You carried them here, didn't you?" Her body was trembling. She tried to crawl toward them, her nails scraping on the cement. Every inch she moved looked like agony. But she didn't care. She wasn't trying to survive. She was trying to keep them alive. Jake knelt beside her again. "You're not just a stray. You were trained, weren't you? You're a working dog. A mother. She looked up at him, and he swore. In that single glance, she answered, yes. He moved fast. In one arm, he scooped the Zomfer up, wrapping her in his flannel jacket. With the other, he gathered the fragile pups into a clean towel he found in his car. It was a tight fit, but he didn't care. Time was running out. As he drove, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers groaned under the weight of it. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror. The mother lay curled up on the seat, eyes half closed, her breathing shallow but steady. Her ears twitched each time one of the pups whimpered. She was still listening, still guarding. Even now, even like this, Jake didn't know who had done this, who had used a dog like her, then dumped her the moment she wasn't needed. But he swore to himself, right then and there, he would make sure she never felt abandoned again. Not her, not her babies. And as the lights of the emergency vet clinic appeared through the rain, Jake whispered one more promise into the dark. You saved them. Now let me save you. The rain was pounding hard now, soaking through Jake's jacket as he pushed the clinic doors open with his shoulder. The moment he stepped in, the tech behind the front desk stood up in alarm. I need help, Jake shouted. It's urgent. She's crashing. A nurse bolted forward with a stretcher. Jake carefully laid the mother down, her eyes barely open now, her body twitching from exhaustion. She's got 3 newborns in the car, he added breathlessly. They're cold, barely moving. 2 more staff rushed outside with towels and a warming box. Jake followed close behind, soaked and shaking, as they carefully gathered the puppies from the passenger seat. Inside, it all happened fast. The mother was rushed to the back. The puppies were placed under heating pads, their little chests rising and falling like flickers of candlelight. Jake stood near the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't notice how hard he was gripping his hands until his knuckles turned white. A vet tech approached. Her face was serious but not panicked. We've got her stabilized, but she's severely malnourished. She hasn't eaten in days. Her back leg may be fractured, and she's got signs of infection. And the puppies? Jake asked. They're critical. 2 are stable for now. The runt? We're not sure yet. Jake looked past her, through the small glass window to the back room. He saw her, the shepherd, hooked up to fluids, eyes fluttering, barely moving. But she was still there, still fighting. I think she's military, he said suddenly. The tech raised an eyebrow. What makes you think that? He pointed. She didn't bark, didn't bite. When I touched her, she leaned in and she didn't ask for help for herself. She dragged me toward them. The way she moved, the way she watched everything, it wasn't random. That dog is trained. I'd bet my life on it. The vet came out moments later, holding a tablet with the intake photos. We ran her chip. Jake's breath caught. She's chipped? The vet nodded slowly. Her name's Nala, registered canine. She served with a private contractor overseas, retired 2 years ago. Jake blinked. Then how the hell did she end up like this? She was adopted by a civilian family after service. The system shows her rehomed twice after that. The last record is from 8 months ago. Then nothing. Jake's jaw tightened. They dumped her. No one argued. No one needed to. She probably got pregnant after being abandoned, the vet added. She might have scavenged to survive long enough to give birth, then somehow kept them alive. She's been walking on that broken leg for since. Jake looked at the floor. His throat felt tight. She was a hero, and no one came for her. He stepped toward the glass again and saw her eyes open, just slightly. They locked on his, and in that look, he felt something shift inside him. She remembered him. She trusted him. She's not going back to the system, Jake said quietly. When she's out of danger, I'm taking her home. All of them. The vet hesitated. Are you sure? That's a lot to take on. Jake nodded. No one should be left behind, especially not a mother who nearly died protecting her babies. From behind him, one of the nurses whispered, The runt just made a sound. He's trying to lift his head. Jake turned sharply. He's still fighting? He is, she said with a smile. Looks like they've got their mom's spirit. Jake walked over to the small crate and looked down. The tiny puppy twitched, his little nose nuzzling blindly under the heat lamp. Jake reached in gently and touched the pup's head. I got you, little guy, he said softly. You're safe now. He looked up, back toward Nala. And so are they. The storm outside continued, but inside that small clinic, something stronger had taken root. Hope. It had been 6 days since the night Jake found Nala collapsed by the dumpster. 6 days of medicine, sleepless nights, and slow, careful feedings. The clinic had done everything they could, but now it was up to Jake. He opened the door to his small home just past noon, carefully carrying Nala in his arms. She was stronger now, not walking yet, but alert. Her golden brown eyes scanned every inch of the living room, as if memorizing every corner. Not out of fear, out of habit. Old habit. Jake had cleared a soft space near the fireplace. Blankets, heating pads, a water bowl, and beside it, a wooden crate lined with towels for the puppies. Now four-eyed little explorers, beginning to wobble on unsteady paws. This is it, girl, Jake whispered, as he lowered Nala to the bedding. It's not much, but it's yours. She didn't move at first, just stared at him, head tilted, breathing slow. Then, with a grunt of effort, she pushed herself closer to the crate and laid her chin beside it. The puppies reacted instantly, bumping into her belly, crawling toward her warmth. Jake watched in silence. There was something sacred about it. A canine war dog turned stray, now cradling her tiny family in the safety of someone who cared. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was healing. And so was he. Jake hadn't told anyone yet, but he'd been through his own kind of war. After serving as a volunteer EMT during a disaster response deployment in California, he had returned home to find his apartment empty and a letter on the counter. His fiancée was gone. Just gone. Said she couldn't live with the constant weight of what if. That was 3 years ago. Since then, it had just been Jake and rescue work. Dog after dog. Save, heal, rehome. But none of them stayed. None of them looked at him the way Nala did, like she understood the loneliness. That night, as he watched the fire crackle beside them, Jake sat on the floor with a mug of coffee and softly said, You're not just another rescue, Nala. You've got something the world needs to remember. He didn't expect her to respond, but she lifted her head, just slightly, and let out the quietest huff of breath. Not a bark, not a growl, just recognition. And then came the knock. Jake froze. It was nearly midnight. No one came out here without calling first. He stood, stepped to the door, and cracked it open. A man in a suit stood on the porch, clean-shaven, tall, with cold eyes and a military-straight posture. Jake Turner? He asked. Yeah, who's asking? The man showed a badge. Agent Curtis, Homeland Security. Jake blinked. What? I'm here about the dog. The German Shepherd you brought into the clinic 6 days ago. Jake stepped out onto the porch, keeping the door half closed behind him. She's not going anywhere. We're not here to take her. Not yet. Jake narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? The agent glanced past him, toward the firelight glowing inside. That dog isn't just a retired canine. She was involved in operations most people don't even know existed. Her last handler disappeared overseas, Classified intel went missing the same week. She was presumed dead. Jake's stomach dropped. You're saying she's connected to that? She may be the only one who knows what happened. Jake looked back inside, saw Nal sleeping with the pups curled against her chest. She's not a weapon, he said quietly. Not anymore. Curtis stepped forward. That may not be your choice. If someone else finds out she's alive, they may come looking, and not to ask questions. Jake closed the door slowly. Inside, Nala's ears twitched. She knew. Something in her past was coming back, and it might be darker than anything Jake had imagined. But he wasn't going to let her face it alone. The morning air was crisp, but something felt off. Jake stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the edge of his property where the trees swayed a little too sharply. Maybe it was the wind. Or maybe it was instinct. The same instinct Nala had the night before, when she rose suddenly from her blanket, ears stiff, gaze locked on the door like she was back in uniform. She hadn't relaxed since Agent Curtis left. Neither had Jake. Inside, the pups were stronger now. Wobbly but determined, they took their first steps across the wood floor, their tiny paws clicking as they followed Nala from corner to corner. She nudged them gently, licking behind their ears, guiding them like a seasoned soldier training new recruits. But Nala never let her eyes stray far from the window. Jake noticed. She feels it too, he murmured. That afternoon, Jake drove into town to grab more food and supplies for the puppies. When he returned, he noticed something strange. The front gate was open. He never left it open. He pulled into the driveway slowly, scanning the area. No sign of anyone, no cars, no tracks in the gravel. But still, Damasanam. The air felt heavier, charged. Inside, Nala was standing, stiff and alert, between the fireplace and the front door. Her hackles were raised, teeth slightly bared. She hadn't barked, not once, since Jake brought her home. But now, she was on high alert. What is it, girl? Jake asked, voice low. She growled. Jake followed her gaze. His eyes landed on the far window, and the glint of a camera lens disappearing into the trees. He moved fast. Bolting out the back door, Jake sprinted around the side of the house and into the woods. Whoever it was had already moved, but the branches were freshly broken, the footprints fresh. Deep boot prints, military grade. Not just a curious stranger. This was surveillance. He returned to the house, locked every door, and shut the blinds. Nala didn't rest. She kept pacing, growling softly, and when the pups whimpered, she nuzzled them but never laid down again. Jake sat on the floor beside her. I need to know who you were. Who you are, he said, almost to himself. And what you're running from. He grabbed his laptop, typing K9 Nala, Altona Division, missing handler, 2 years ago. Nothing public came up, but after digging through private forums and leaked military records, he found a name. Sergeant Ryan Halvers. Decorated, assigned to covert transport missions across conflict zones. Went dark during a final operation. Declared MIA. His last known partner? K9, Nala. Jake's heart sank. That's when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring once, twice. He answered. A voice spoke calmly, too calmly. She's alive, isn't she? Jake said nothing. We know where you are, don't be a hero. Click. Jake stared at the phone, hands shaking. He didn't know who it was, but the message was clear. Nala wasn't just a forgotten K9. She was a threat to someone powerful enough to erase a soldier, and willing to do it again. That night, he sat beside her again. The pups were finally asleep, warm and safe. But Nala was wide awake, eyes fixed on the door. Jake whispered, You've been through war, haven't you, girl? She blinked once, slow, heavy. I don't know what you saw, or what they think you remember, but I promise you, I'm not letting them take you. I don't care who they are. She rested her head on his lap. Her breathing slowed, but she didn't sleep. Neither did Jake. Because he knew now, someone was coming. And this time, Nala wasn't just fighting for her puppies. She was fighting for her life. It happened just after 2 a.m. Jake had finally drifted into a light, uneasy sleep on the couch. The fire had died down, casting only a soft orange glow across the living room. The only sound was the rhythmic breathing of Nala's 3 pups, bundled safely in their crate beside her, until she growled. Low, guttural. Jake's eyes snapped open. Then, glass shattered. The kitchen window exploded inward, shards scattering across the floor. A dark figure dove through the opening and rolled to his feet, dressed in black from head to toe. Jake didn't have time to think. He leapt up, grabbing the baseball bat he kept behind the door. But Nala was faster. She launched. With a ferocity Jake had never seen, she tore across the living room, slamming into the intruder and knocking him to the ground. The man screamed as her teeth sank into his shoulder. But just as she went for a second strike, a second shadow moved behind her. No! Jake shouted. Too late. The second man grabbed one of the pups from the crate. The smallest one. The runt. The puppy squealed in terror as the man turned and ran back through the broken window. Nala spun, barking wildly now. A sound from another life. Her ears pinned back, she tried to follow, but stumbled. Her back leg still weak from the old fracture. Jake ran to her, heart pounding. I got this, he breathed, grabbing a flashlight and vaulting through the same window. The night was wet and dark, and the forest behind the house seemed to swallow the light whole. Jake pushed through branches, leaves cutting his arms, rain falling from above. Ahead, he heard it. Footsteps, cracking branches, a faint whimper. He followed the sound deeper into the trees. Behind him, Nala limped outside, teeth bared, eyes wild. She shouldn't have been moving at all, but her baby was out there. Her ears flicked. She caught the scent. Then she ran. Pain or no pain, nothing would stop her now. Jake caught up with the intruder near the edge of the ravine. The man was holding the pup in one arm, flashlight in the other. He wasn't expecting to be followed. Put him down! Jake roared, stepping into the clearing. The man turned, startled. And in that second, Nala struck from the side. She slammed into him with terrifying force, sending him crashing to the ground. The puppy flew from his grasp, landing softly in a patch of moss. Jake scooped the puppy up as Nala pinned the intruder, growling so low it made the ground vibrate. He was frozen beneath her, eyes wide with panic. Call them off, he begged. Please. Jake's voice was ice. Who sent you? I can't say. They said she knew something. About a mission in Syria. Nala's growl deepened. Jake stepped forward. She's not your problem anymore. You want her, you come through me. The man nodded quickly. They're going to keep coming. They won't stop. Neither will we. Jake called Nala back. She hesitated, then turned, limping back to his side. He looked down at her, chest rising and falling. She had protected her pup. She had protected all of them. Back at the house, the police were waiting. The first intruder had been tied to a chair by Jake with an old extension cord and a broken ankle. The second now joined him in cuffs. Jake gave a full report. The officers didn't ask many questions. One of them bent down to pet Nala softly, shaking his head. You saved your family, girl. Later that night, Jake sat by the fire again, the runt curled in his lap. Nala lay beside him, her breathing slow, her eyes finally at ease. "You didn't just fight," he whispered. "You remembered. You remembered who you are." She looked at him, and this time, she wagged her tail. It was small, but it was the first time. Jake smiled, and for the first time since this began, he let himself hope. 3 weeks passed. The house, once filled with tension and fear, now echoed with life. The puppies, all 3, were thriving. Their eyes were bright, their barks bold, and their legs quick and wobbly. As they chased one another around the living room, Nala watched them closely, always calm, always just a step away. Her body was healing, but her spirit had come alive. Jake noticed the change in her. She walked straighter now, trusted more. She no longer startled at every sound, and sometimes, when he was working in the yard, she would sit at the edge of the porch, proud and still, like a queen watching over her kingdom. But Jake never forgot the warning. "They'll come again," he'd said to himself more than once. "They always do." He'd installed new locks, cameras, even reinforced the back gate. But what came next wasn't what he expected. One morning, just after sunrise, a black SUV rolled up his dirt driveway. Jake stepped out onto the porch, ready. Shoulders squared, hand on his phone in case he needed backup. But the man who stepped out of the vehicle didn't look like a threat. He was older. His walk was slow. He wore a plain navy windbreaker, a Marine Corps patch on the sleeve. His eyes were heavy with time and something else. Grief. Jake didn't speak first. The man did. "You have her," he said quietly. "Don't you?" Jake hesitated. "Who are you?" The man swallowed. "My name is Colonel Mark Halvers. I'm Ryan Halvers's father." Jake froze. "Ryan," the man continued, "was Nala's last handler." Jake stepped forward slowly. Ryan was listed as MIA, gone during a classified mission. Colonel Halvers nodded, his voice tight. "We never recovered his body, but we know Nala was with him until the end." Jake blinked. "How do you know that?" The man pulled something from his jacket. A photo, worn and faded. In it, a younger man knelt beside Nala, both of them covered in dust, smiling despite the chaos in the background. She dragged his body from the blast zone, carried him for nearly half a mile. Halvers said, when they found her, she was unconscious, but his dog tag was in her mouth. Jake's breath caught. "She saved him?" he asked. The colonel shook his head. "No, she tried. He died hours before they found her, but she didn't leave him, not until they made her." He stepped forward, eyes glistening. "I didn't come to take her. I came to thank her." Jake led him inside. The moment Nala saw the colonel, she froze. Her ears perked. She didn't growl. She didn't bark. She just walked, slowly, to the man and sat in front of him. Colonel Halvers knelt to the floor. "Nala," he whispered, "you made sure my son didn't die alone." She leaned in, pressed her head into his chest, and the old man broke. He held her for a long time, no words, just tears and memories pouring out. Jake stood back, watching the moment unfold. This wasn't just a dog. She was a soldier, a sister, a memory made flesh. After a while, Halvers stood and looked at Jake. "You gave her back her purpose. You didn't just rescue her. You gave her a reason to keep living." Jake's voice was thick. "She gave that to me, too." The colonel smiled, looking down at the pups playing by the fireplace. "What will you do with them?" Jake smiled. "Raise them right. Train them. Let them choose their path." He looked at Nala, now curled up near the pups, finally at peace. "She already showed them how to survive. Now it's my job to teach them how to thrive." Halvers nodded. then she's exactly where she's meant to be. That night, as the stars appeared over the trees, Jake sat on the porch with Nala by his side. One of the puppies climbed into his lap, then promptly fell asleep. "You were never lost," Jake whispered, running a hand through her fur. The world just forgot to keep looking. Nal didn't move, but she didn't need to. She was home. 6 months later, the house was no longer quiet. The once wobbly puppies had grown into confident young dogs, bounding through the yard with energy that seemed limitless. Jake had built them a training space, complete with tunnels, platforms, and obstacles. What started as a simple backyard had become something more, a sanctuary. And Nala, she was still the heart of it all. Her limp was barely noticeable now. Her eyes were clear, her movements calm and proud. Though she didn't join the pups in their chaos, she watched them like a general surveys her troops, patient, wise, always ready. Jake had never seen anything like her, and neither had the world. After Colonel Halver's visit, word about Nala spread, not in tabloids or flashy headlines, but in veteran forums, animal rescue groups, and among former handlers who remembered her name. Soldiers started showing up at Jake's door, not to take her, but to sit with her, to thank her, to remember through her. One afternoon, Jake received a call from a retired officer now working in community outreach. He invited Jake and Nala to speak at a local veterans ceremony. At first, Jake hesitated. Nala wasn't a show dog. She wasn't a trophy. But then he realized she was a symbol, and symbols matter. The event was held at a nearby veterans park. Rows of white chairs, flags fluttering in the breeze, families gathered in solemn respect. When Jake and Nala stepped onto the small outdoor stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Jake cleared his throat, nerves tight in his chest. Nala sat beside him, calm as ever. "This," he began, his voice steady, "is Nala, a retired canine, a mother, a survivor, and a hero." He paused. "I didn't save her. She saved herself. All I did was listen." He told them everything, Kim, from the night he found her, to the puppies, to the men who came in the dark, and finally, to the truth she carried from the battlefield. When he finished, no one moved. Then, one by one, people stood, applauding. Not loud, but real. Deep. Heavy with meaning. Nal didn't bark. She didn't flinch. She just sat tall, tail gently tapping the stage, her gaze scanning the crowd as if she were standing at attention once again. Later that night, Jake sat on the porch, a medal resting in his lap. It wasn't his, it was hers. For service and valor. The inscription gleamed beneath the stars. The puppies lay at their mother's feet, tired from another day of training. They were strong now, confident. 2 of them were already matched with future service dog programs. The third, the runt, never left Jake's side. He followed him everywhere. Jake had named him Chance. As the moon climbed higher, Jake whispered, "We could have just gone on with our lives, you and me. Quiet, safe. But that's not who you are, is it?" Nala looked up at him. Jake smiled. "So, here's what we're going to do." The next day, he filed the paperwork. Nala's Haven, a nonprofit rehabilitation and training center for retired canines, military, and police that had been forgotten, discarded, or left behind. A place for them to heal, to train again if they wanted to, or simply to rest in peace. The mission was simple: no canine left behind, ever again. Volunteers signed up fast. Local businesses donated supplies. Within weeks, 2 more rescued canines arrived. One had severe PTSD. Another had been found chained behind a warehouse. Both were met by Nala, who, with quiet grace, showed them that safety could exist again. Jake stood one evening at the edge of the training field, watching as the new dogs ran alongside the pups. Nala lay nearby in the grass. Chance curled at her side. He took a deep breath. "I didn't know what I was doing that night," he said aloud. "I just followed your lead." Nala's tail thumped once. She didn't need words. She had never needed them. Jake turned to her, smiling. "You didn't just survive. You built something." And under the setting sun, surrounded by dogs, reborn through love, loyalty, and second chances, Jake realized something powerful. Nala hadn't just been a hero. She had become a legend. If this story inspired you, remember, true loyalty never fades, and courage can take many forms. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who believes that every life deserves a second chance.